a very brief presentation to give you, less than 10 minutes, but before I do that, I'm going to ask that Common Council President Alderman Perez give a few opening remarks.
Thank you. First of all, Jose Perez, Alderman 12th District, and most importantly, I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. It is so important that you're here, you're engaged, you have questions, you have comments, criticisms of the plan, and more importantly, our council's committed to removing lead in all properties, whether it's water, soil, or laterals. How we get there, there's different approaches to it, but I'm glad you're here tonight. We want to hear from you. We want you to evaluate what's being proposed, and we want to make sure that you're engaged in this process. I welcome all of you that, moving forward, you continue to contact either my office, your elected representative, the Water Works. I know that we have community organizations and agencies here committed to this, and we're going to talk to them moving forward, and I'll let you know we're here for you. So I know you didn't come here to hear me speak, but they are gonna make this presentation, and we look forward to your engagement in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. And what he said is absolutely true. We want input. That's why we're here. We are open to any criticisms that people want to give us. Any positive input is also welcome. We've been working very hard for what feels, well, it's well over 6 months to expand the replacement program based on the anticipated federal funding that's coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law. And that funding will first be allocated to the City of Milwaukee this fall. We've recently made an application for funding, and the DNR is reviewing all the applications, and then we'll issue funding awards. So I have a little cheat sheet in order to keep myself on task, and I think before we talk about our prioritization plan and our expansion plan, I just wanted to give you some background on where we are now with the lead service replacement program and how long we've been doing it. So I think I need to start with the fact that we at the Water Works take our responsibility to provide fresh, safe drinking water for all of our customers very seriously. And we have been working very hard on this situation. So there are still approximately 65,000 remaining lead service lines in our service area. We have replaced nearly 6,000 services since the beginning of 2017. One of the things that we like to point out to everyone, because in a lot of municipalities across the country, there is difficulty identifying where the lead services are. We have been blessed with very comprehensive, accurate records of where lead service lines were installed, meaning we have records back to permit number 1, which was issued in 1872, and the location was on 730 North Water Street. So we have every permit from number 1 to our current level, current number. So we know where the lead service lines are, and that's why we brought a map that shows the location of the lead services. You can see that they are spread out from pretty far north to pretty far south, and all the way west in the City of Milwaukee residential area. This map is also found on our website, as is a list. Oh, I'm sorry. Yadira, how did you let me do this without you? I really apologize. We have translation services available to us.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Yadira Menéndez, trabajo para la ciudad de Milwaukee. Si alguien necesita servicios de interpretación, aquí estoy y traigo equipo para hacerlo. Gracias.
Wow, that was fast.
Do we need? We do not. The lead pipe provides a barrier between the water and the lead, and so it greatly reduces the risk of lead release into the water. And we know that because in the mid-90s, when we started adding orthophosphate, the lead levels for our compliance testing went dramatically down, and they have remained there ever since. And we just recently went through an optimization program with the Wisconsin DNR to confirm that we are indeed dosing at the right level of orthophosphate. They did confirm that. They confirmed it by having us remove lead pipes from the ground and run water through with different doses of orthophosphate to see which one was optimal, and they did confirm that we are optimized. So we are in full compliance with the lead and copper rule. So the current lead service line replacement program was established in 2017 by ordinance. It requires replacement, full service replacement, anytime there's a leak or failure in the service line. It requires full replacement in any licensed or registered childcare, and it requires full replacement if the utility determines to replace the public side on a planned basis, which means we've been replacing 900 services a year. Our goal this year is 1,200. That's what we're budgeted for, and we've been filling that up with primarily leaks and failures. And if some of you are familiar with the program, if your service experiences a leak or failure, you are offered the ability to participate in the program. What that does is provides a cost share. So the utility will pay for 100 side of the utility side costs. The property owner and the city split the private side costs. And currently the property owner cost share is $1,592, which is a lot of money. Although if your service experiences a leak or failure, it's far less than it would cost to have a private plumber come in and perform the work on your service line, either repair or replacement. So that's been our current program. As I said at the beginning, we are in the process of developing a prioritization plan and an expansion of that program in anticipation of larger allocations of federal funding from the EPA through the Wisconsin DNR. And so we embarked on this at least 6 months ago, and there has been a focus from the EPA, from the DNR, to prioritize based on disadvantaged communities. So we are calling this our equity prioritization program. We are taking into account the disadvantaged status of particular neighborhoods in the city of Milwaukee. And so we use 3 factors to create this prioritization plan. And certainly this is where we are looking for most input. We utilize the ADI, which is the Area Deprivation Index. And this is an index created for 14 different economic factors based on household, and it includes education, income, employment, housing, and other housing characteristics. And this index was created by, and I got to read this because sometimes I forget words. It's the UW-Madison Center for Health Disparities Research, and it's part of the School of Medicine and Public Health. So that's the primary driver of the prioritization plan. The secondary driver is the incidence of elevated blood lead levels within the census block group. And then the third and minor contributor to the prioritization is the density of lead service lines within a census block group. So we have weighted the score for the ADI at 70%, the incidence of elevated blood lead levels in children at 25%, and the density of lead service lines at 5%, and each census block group then received a score. And the highest score, which is the neighborhoods most in need, were ranked from 1 descending. And what you see to my left here is a map showing the scoring, the prioritization and scoring, where the darker colors indicate the most disadvantaged, the neighborhoods most in need. And so that prioritization plan is the basis for the expansion of the replacement program. And certainly we would like comment, and I will be happy to take questions for as long as you want me to. The expansion was initially proposed to be for an additional 500 services beginning next year, and then building on that in subsequent years. You may have recently heard that the mayor has made it a goal to replace all lead services in 20 years. We are intending to build to that rate, and that rate would exceed 3,000 services a year, so there will be a period of building from incremental building, and what we need to do is establish the base of this program to continue to build on it. And so I think one of the things that we've talked about internally with Water Works, and we've had conversations with the mayor about, is that the property owner cost share has been a huge hurdle to replacing services. It's a lot of money for many of our residents. And so what we would like to do is propose that cost share be eliminated. And it will be something that we'll have to have further discussions with the mayor and the Common Council to get that cost share eliminated. But I think that's one of the largest hurdles to getting a cleaner, smoother, quicker replacement process, because at this point, we do quite a lot of legwork obtaining consents and agreement from the property owners to move forward with the lead service line replacement, and eliminating that cost share will make it quite a bit simpler process. And so the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and I hope I have not run over 10 minutes, I tried my best to keep it under 10, is that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, and we're going to take questions about water as long as you want to be here, but I think it's important for everyone to understand that being lead safe, being a lead aware, means being aware of the other risks for lead poisoning, which is paint, dust, and soil are the three primary that we're here talked about. But quite honestly, you can find lead in a number of places that you would not expect it. In fruits and vegetables and meats. So it's important that we talk about this water concern. It's also important that we recognize that there are other contributors to lead poisoning. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions or comments.
Yeah, why is it taking so long to remove those lead laterals? Since the feds send money to the city for part of it, and what's the amount today that the city has, or your department, to remove these lead laterals from the black neighborhood, which is predominantly, and the Southside, which is Latino predominantly too? When and how fast can you guys do that instead of just 3,000 per year?
Well, the federal funding through the bipartisan infrastructure law has not been allocated to the city yet. The first allocation is anticipated this fall, September, we hope. The applications were just submitted. They were due by the end of June from communities all over the state. The DNR is going to review each and one of those applications. There is a scoring system associated with those applications, and then they will issue a funding award, and that funding award will be comprised of both a forgivable loan, basically a grant, and low interest loan. So we are waiting patiently to see if we receive all of the funding we requested for the first year of the program. And that's an annual program. We reapply, we indicate our intent to apply in September of every year, and then put a formal application in June of that year.
Have you looked at other city models where the cities are actually removing more lead laterals than what the city of Milwaukee is doing? And are you planning to use that model to, excuse me, I'm asking him a question.
Can we save the questions until after Pat's done with this?
Well, he said if we can ask him a question.
Because
So
we have another person who's going to present, and then we were going to open the floor to Q&A. You've already asked.
Well,
you've asked
excuse
one
me,
question.
let me answer the question. You did say, yeah, can you please?
I will take this question.
Thank you,
and then we
I
should let
appreciate
our
it.
presenter-
Well, my question is, have you the department looked at other city models where cities are taking out more lead laterals compared to the city of Milwaukee, and how they're doing it? And if the city of Milwaukee would plan to get that type of model here in Milwaukee?
We have been in you're referring to Detroit, you're referring to
Yeah,
Denver.
there's other cities that they're doing a good job on doing it.
Detroit and Denver. We're well aware of what some of the cities in New Jersey have done. We're well aware of what some of the cities in Michigan have done. Quite honestly, it's been a number of factors that have limited the expansion of the program, but one of the primary is funding. But I will also say that internally, the utility has a workforce challenge as well. We have a 21% vacancy rate overall in the utility. So the amount of work associated with lead service lines that impacts the different sections of the utility is significant. And so when we talk to these other utilities, they don't have 21% vacancy rates. So there's a funding situation, there's an internal utility capacity challenge, there's an external contractor capacity that we don't know yet if it's a challenge, but certainly the local contractor capacity will need to ramp up slowly. They aren't going to be able to go from 1,000 services to many thousand services in 1 year. So I do apologize. I got ahead of myself with the questions. We do have, and I will be back for questions, but we do have another group that would like.
Well, thank
to
you for
speak.
responding.
You're welcome. Good evening, Dimitrijevic. And I apologize to you as well.
No problem.
Looping you in quickly.
Hello, everyone. I guess we're good. Hello, everyone. My name is Tamika Glenn, and I am the Chief Program Officer for Cole's Lead Safe and Healthy Homes Project. I am here to let you guys know that we are working with Milwaukee Water Works, but we are working with them in the capacity of education. I'm not defending anything that's going on, and I'm gonna make that first and foremost, because we all know that lead is not a good thing at all, so we cannot even try to even start that part. But I am here to let you guys know that we are here as providing education for the north side and south side to help anyone that has questions on how to lower the lead levels in our children. We are here to advocate for the community, to help you guys to be able to communicate more with the Milwaukee Water Works, and we are going to be around more often. You will see a lot of people out here with cold badges, and we want you guys to be aware that you do not have to run from us. We are here to help. We are also providing services in education and let you know how to lower the lead levels in our children. We're here to advocate to keep the lead levels at 10, because we want it at 10 to be able to have a call to action. We want a reaction. We don't want this lead problem to fall by the wayside. So here at Cole, we are providing workforce development to help people get trained jobs, to help service their own communities in this problem. And it is a problem, you guys. We're not here to defend anything. We're here to work with Milwaukee Water Works, so you guys know that it is somebody that's on the ground actually doing this work to get the education and information out to these communities. So we're going to listen to everything that the Milwaukee Water Works has to say and see where we can come in and help our community and be able to be the medium in between the two, okay? So with that being said, if you guys have any questions for Cole, we are definitely on Facebook. We have representatives here. If you have any type of questions that you would like to ask in regards to lead service line work, we are going to be helping facilitate that with SDC and some more of our other community partners as well. So with that being said, you know, with Cole just opening up and starting our organization, we are out here doing the work, and it's going to get greater. We're going to help solve this problem. And we're not going to wait the 60-some years or 20-some years that we will have to work. We're going to find a happy medium to get this problem resolved, okay? All right. Thank you guys for listening.
I had a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I think I heard you say you want to fight to keep the level of lead poisoning at 10?
No, you did not hear that
What was
properly.
the 10?
Not at all.
Okay, explain.
And one thing for sure, we are advocating to make sure that we don't get it lowered back down. We want it to
Well,
stay
you just
up to
confused me
be
again.
able.
You just confused me again. To keep it lower back down, what are you talking about, from where? From where?
Right now, we had a 3.5,
Okay,
right?
right.
Right.
That's what the CDC says.
The CDC.
Yeah.
But right now, we have a call to action within code at 10 to be able to provide lead service abatements for homes.
Okay,
And
so
we
you're
do
working
not
at
want
10.
that.
You're working at, that's what my point is.
Yeah,
You're working at 10, but the CDC says 3.5.
the CDC says 3.5. We're gonna provide education
Okay.
to help them to lower it up under 3.5. Let's get that correct.
Okay.
So let me,
That's
excuse me,
where the
let me hold me one
clarification is.
second.
Okay.
Let's make this clarified, because there's a lot coming at one time.
Sure.
All right? So right now, we know that the lead service line is, the lead blood levels is at 3.5, right? We don't want to see no child over that. We want to see them get lower than a
Correct.
3.5.
Correct.
But in order for us to provide abatement for kids, we are at a 10. And we should not be that high. We should be lower than that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
what
you
I
for
need.
correcting me.
That's what the clarification.
You know, when you're up here and you're
Much
talking, you
appreciated.
definitely need to be corrected sometimes. But we want to advocate to get it below 3.5.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right, Matt. Any more questions for me? There has to be more questions. Is how we start.
I'll take it if they're not gonna ask.
All right.
So, we're at 3,300 is what's being reported in the media. 20-year plan that the mayor is proposing. And we are now 6 months into filing for more EPA funding and DNR approval and stuff like that. Two-part question. How long before we get answers from EPA, DNR, and others as to if Milwaukee has been approved for that additional funding? And two, why the 20-year plan when the President of the United States promised America that when he handed out this funding, that we are going to eliminate all these pipes within a decade, within 10 years?
So, the first part of your question was related to the additional funding?
Exactly.
I mean,
Yes, sir.
we made application through the state Safe Drinking Water Loan Program in June. That funding award will be issued in September, and then we'll have an idea, and quite honestly, we expect to receive all of the funding we applied for. And we applied for $30.1 million of funding. We expect to receive a funding award for that amount. It will be made up of loans and forgivable loans, which are grants. So it's very important to the City of Milwaukee and the Water Works, obviously, what the makeup of that loans to grants percentage is. So Milwaukee has been designated, will be designated a disadvantaged community by the Wisconsin DNR. Only disadvantaged communities are eligible to receive any principal forgiveness funding, any grant funding. So we know we're going to receive a certain portion of grant funding. So that will greatly guide us to how many services we should move forward to replace. Now that 3,000 services is based on the fact that that funding can be used for replacements starting in July of this year, all the way through the end of next year and perhaps later. But as I said, the next cycle of funding begins this September already, where we indicate our intent to apply. The president's goal or promise, I don't remember if it was a goal or a promise.
I'll send you the link to his statement. He
And
promised.
I mean, he didn't speak to me before we made that.
Spoke to America.
He did, but
He spoke to America.
and I recognize the value of making those goals or promises, but I will tell you that the reality of the situation is this is a very difficult process to undertake, and we are not alone in the challenges that we face. We met with Detroit less than 2 weeks ago. They are having the same sort of challenges ramping up their program. Their goal is 5,000 services this year, 10,000 moving forward. They are experiencing some of the same challenges we are, even though they have no cost to their property owner.
But they're doing 5,000 this year, 10,000 next year, and we're doing 3,000. Is Detroit better than Milwaukee?
I can't speak, I should refrain from answering that. Their goal is 5,000.
No, it's 3,000. It's 3,000.
Well, but this year it's not 3,000.
Oh,
Even this
1,200.
year it's not
Okay,
3,000.
thank you. Thank you, you're right.
Because there's gonna have to be.
So
a
it's 1,200
capacity
this year, 3,000 next year.
Well, I think it's highly unlikely we get to 3,000 next year. We had, initially, when this process started, we had planned to increase by 500. We've more recently said that if all goes well, we could potentially increase that, and all goes well means funding award, internal capacity and external capacity, and the timing goes right to have the assistance we need on board, that we can increase that by 1,000 instead of 500.
And so the plan that you're basing all this on, is there a plan on the table or a plan that the public can read and look at, that in order to make sure we have all our ducks in a row and all our T's crossed and our I's dotted here? Is there a
Well,
plan?
I mean, the plan I described is the framework of the plan, and the data is, the ADI data is publicly available. The elevated blood level data is proprietary. That's health department data that we signed a confidentiality agreement in order to use. The density of lead services is publicly available. So, I mean, the plan, that's the framework of the plan, and then the normalization.
And then that's fine, but is there a Milwaukee specific plan? Where's the Milwaukee specific plan incorporating all that data?
Well,
To
we're
come
building-
to the conclusions that you're coming
I
to.
mean, this is the process of building it.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, I don't know who had their hand up first. Let's go all the way back. Go right ahead.
You know, hold the microphone closer to your mouth, sir.
Sorry.
So families that are on the waiting, or those other families that are waiting till they have their laterals changed out, what about filtrations or things, vouchers for filters for those families, and what about testing? I mean, I know in my household, I've never tested to see what level we're at, so what's going to happen for those families?
Well, so the testing, unfortunately, we don't have the capacity internally to offer testing to everyone who has the lead service line. We do have on our website links to private testing services that will give you a protocol, send you a kit. You follow their protocol very specifically. You send that kit in, and they will mail you the testing results for your water. It's important to recognize that testing for lead in water is very characteristics dependent based on how long the water is sat in the pipes without being run. I mean, our testing protocol is that the water be in the pipe for 6 hours before you test it. The more you use it, obviously, the fresher the water is, and based on our testing results, the levels of lead in the water in the pipes in the street are typically non-detect. So that's why we talk about reducing your risk further by flushing your pipes if the water's been sitting in it for some period of time.
What about filters?
Well, filters are something that we recommend for high-risk populations. So that's children under the age of 6, pregnant women or who can become pregnant, and women who are breastfeeding. And so that's also something that has to be undertaken on a personal basis to purchase filters. The utility has not engaged in supplying filters to the general population. I believe the health department does have some programs that include filters, like a lead safe kit that they are able to provide, but I don't know under what scenarios they provide that.
Okay, I live on the KK River area, and we're right on that Lincoln, KK area down there by Cleveland. And when they tore down a bunch of houses to make this new extension for the river, they're doing a lot of work there. Great job, by the way. I watched them tear down all these houses. And all they did was tear it down and into the basement, they threw everything. They never took out the lead pipes or anything like that. That's all in the ground. What about the water cabinet? The water table down there, where it's all seeping, because you said you coated the inside of the pipes, but not the outside. And that's leakage.
correct. If the lead remains in the ground, I mean, our lead service lines are buried 5.5 to 7 feet deep typically, so they are going to likely remain in the ground. Our water comes from Lake Michigan, so it's not water table water, groundwater, but
that seeps into right where the KKs, where they're building, you're doing all that, so all that soil, they're digging it up, all that, when the rain comes and working, that's all going to flush into the river.
the water would have to filtrate past the, as we discussed before, the bigger chance of lead release is when there's long-term contact with the lead pipes. If water is flowing past them, and quite honestly, this is way out of my area of expertise, but you're correct that the pipes are remaining in the ground and there is a potential exposure to that. But I would tell you that there's already lead typically found in the soil before the pipe. Lead is a naturally occurring element. It's part of our environment. So that's why, the key is to reduce risk as much as possible.
So just basically next steps on the sides, looking for filtration and so on, or is there an application for this work?
There is not currently an application. The prioritization plan is to establish a systematic approach to replacing services on an annual basis, and so we will follow the prioritization plan as much as possible. Now, certainly there are modifications that will be made as the program expands. It would be, the right word's not coming to mind. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to say this is how it's going to be and we're going to follow. We will adjust.
Basically, though, looks like you're going to certain zones that are higher priority, people will be notified in their areas. In the meantime, because that's what we have.
Yes, for the most part. There is the owner. We offer the owner-initiated program, which is if someone comes to us and says they want to replace their lead service line, the utility will replace the public side at utility cost in coordination with the property owner replacing the private side, but that does have a cost associated.
And last follow-up, we do the testing for 34 gallons, find out that we either have extraordinary high levels of lead or we have a population that's vulnerable, we can contact you and let you know that. Does that help?
Yes, because then we evaluate these situations on a case-by-case basis. Our water quality section would want to know the circumstances under which you sampled, and they would want to investigate further themselves to understand, because quite honestly, it's very infrequent that we see measurements above the EPA's level of 15 parts per billion for lead in water. It's very infrequent that we see that.
My question, I will say I arrived late, so I apologize if you already answered it and we just obviously skip over. But when we are replacing lead service lines, my big understanding is that part of what makes it currently safe is like the additives you've added that make it that the lead doesn't gel. But when you're working with those lines, does it shake out lead in the sense that the people who live there need to do anything special? Are you doing anything to mediate in the sense that if we do this lead replacement, and you tested right when you're doing it, does the numbers drastically go up? Is that something people need to be aware of and do need to know?
Yes, it is something we're very cognizant of. So prior to a lead replacement, we provide a filter pitcher to the residents to make sure and instruct them to use the filter pitcher in the days leading up to, and then for at least 30 days after. And then we do offer voluntary lead testing prior to and after the service is replaced, because there is data that shows that when the lead service line is disturbed by cutting it or severing it, that there is risk of elevated lead release immediately after when you connect. And so even though we are removing the lead service line completely from the water main to the water meter in the house, there is a chance that there has been elevated lead release that has gotten into your interior plumbing. And one of the other things we advised very strongly after the lead service is replaced is that a whole house flush is performed from the bottom up to try to remove any extra. So removing the aerators on the faucet heads and running water from all the fixtures in the house, starting at the bottom and going up to try to get all of that water or any of that potential extra lead release out of the system. Yes?
Who's paying for that?
Who's paying for?
All out. Everything you just said, to flush it up and replace all those pieces, who's paying for that?
Oh, well, the pieces don't need to be replaced, they just screw off and screw back on.
Right.
It's so you're talking about the water itself?
No, not the water itself.
I'm sorry.
Like literally what you just said, like if everything if the house needs to be flushed, if little pieces that needs to be unscrewed, you just said they need to be replaced, right?
No, it does not.
They just need to be taken off?
It just needs to be reinstalled. You unscrew it, and then you flush, and you screw it back.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah, I have a couple of points of clarity I'd like, but I really appreciate your brief presentation at the beginning. But the first thing I want to kind of ask, I guess, is since, and you were right on point with when the first lateral was installed, in 1872, and that was also when lead was mandated to be used, right? That was the year that the mayor of Milwaukee said, if you're going to connect to the city water system, you have to use lead pipes, and that lasted from 1872 until 1950. And I really appreciate the fact that you said that you're working on getting to a place where there is no, quote unquote, private side payment, because that, it seems unjust for people that, living, 100 years later to have to pay for a pipe that wasn't installed of their volition, and that was actually mandated by the city, toxic pipes that had to be installed. So I like that, but my question would be, so the people that already had to pay for their lead pipes to be removed, for the private side to be removed, is there going to be a plan afterwards to go back and try and make sure that that cost is alleviated for people? Because it just doesn't seem right that a pipe that was mandated that by the city and fully installed by the city, the cost falls on to the homeowners here and the renters here in Milwaukee.
Well, you bring up a concern that there's a equity issue with people being part of the program since 2017, participating in paying the cost share, and potentially moving forward that there be no cost share. I think that is part of the conversation. I think it's not a big part of the conversation because right now there still is a cost share. And quite honestly, I don't know how it would, I'm not sure what the mechanism would be to go back in time and address that. I mean, the bottom, I guess, moving forward, there is this huge influx of federal funding that was not available to the city in 2017 through 2022, quite honestly, and I think most of you are aware of the challenges with the city's finances that hopefully have been somewhat relieved recently, but there was a very challenging fiscal situation for the city that has changed with the influx of this funding.
And I had a second point of clarity as well. You cited that Milwaukee's always been within the lead and copper rule compliance area. Is the lead and copper rule compliance area, is that health-based or is that just an arbitrary bureaucratic standard?
It's not a health-based, it's an advisory limit.
So they just kind of made that up as the number that
Well, I can't speak to, I'm certain they didn't just make it up.
Oh, no,
you are
didn't.
right, yeah.
EPA.
No, but I shouldn't. It's not a health-based standard, is, I guess, the answer. I'm gonna go back there and then back to you.
I see you're kind of targeting those neighborhoods that have high risk factors for those types of businesses. Is there efficiency gained in doing kind of neighborhood by neighborhood versus house by house that have higher needs? I understand these neighborhoods have been identified, but is it possible to go house by house by needs, or is that too inefficient?
it's very inefficient for scheduling and cost. And so what we've learned with the one-off replacements at leaks or failures, initially when they started the program, the average cost for the full replacement exceeded $11,000, and that was far higher than anyone anticipated. As time has gone on, that has come down to a little under $10,000 per service. But when we replace services prior to pavement reconstruction projects, which will be similar to what happens with the neighborhood focused projects, when we do full blocks at a time, a contractor in some instances is able to replace 4 services in a day, where going to one location and bringing all his equipment is 1 service in a day or 1.5. And so the pricing comes down significantly, up to 20% or even a little further when they can do multiple services on the same day.
Sorry, one more. What's the biggest limiting factor to doing it faster? Is it dollars, and we hope that's somewhat eliminated shortly, or is it human capital, like there just aren't enough people to do it, or something else?
It's the cost share, it's dollars, it is human capital internally and externally. I mean, the contracting community has told us that if they know there's a guarantee of a certain level of work, they will find people and they will staff up and they will build a workforce. Our internal workforce needs to be stabilized. The cost share, quite honestly, has been such a huge hurdle that we didn't anticipate in 2017. We thought that there would be I don't know, we thought there would be a lot more cooperation and willingness to enter into the program. And when we go to locations prior to a pavement reconstruction project, we send out the information and we tell them we need a response. And we don't hear back in average is about 50% of the time, but in some instances it's far less than 50. And then we pursue them further, and then we try to call, and then we try to knock on doors. And there is a resistance now. It's hard to say if that resistance is related to non-owner occupied properties, the location we're going, but it has been a huge burden to try to achieve consent and agreements and scheduling projects. And someone, I was at a conference recently, and quite honestly, just about all the talks were about lead service replacement programs going on all over the country. And someone said, you know, it sounds simple enough on the surface because it can be done in one day. But each one of these is its own project. It requires the infrastructure and the administration and the scheduling and the paperwork and the notification and the customer outreach. It's like doing thousands of projects a year, and it does sound simple on the surface. It takes a day. What could be so difficult about it? And I think those are some of the lessons we've learned over the last 6.5 years, that they're complex. They really are. Yes?
Understanding that the task at hand is daunting, there's no doubt about that. There have to be mechanisms in place where the community can protect itself much better than what we're doing now. And what I mean is, when we talk about, for example, the issue of flushing, we're talking about reduction of lead levels in the water, because that's what flushing does. It doesn't prevent it, it reduces the number. And what we want to see is prevention. What we want to see is, rather than homes flushing and having, instead of 10, 12, 13 parts per billion of lead in the water, bringing it down to 2, 3, 1 part per billion in the water, it's still not preventing, because as your website says, there's no lead safe level. As many other groups in the city have on their website, say there is no safe level of lead. The CDC says the same thing, and the EPA says the same thing. So how do we get to the point of prevention? And my point is, if the point of prevention can be to increase the number of filters available to the public for this public health concern, why hasn't there been any initiative of effort to find a way to put more filters in the hands of the public, instead of relying on flushing, which is totally unreliable, but to get filters to the homes so that people can protect themselves using these filters as this big, daunting, and very complicated task to try to remove this from our environment is moving forward.
So the filters are something we recommend for the high-risk population. We discussed, I mean, the children 6 years and younger of age.
But my point is we had about 5 years ago, maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, a big citywide campaign, and I think a lot of people remember that here. A big citywide campaign where the mayor at the time and everybody started, go get the filters, and the city and everybody was providing that. And now we're at a point where we don't know who is providing the filters. Is SDC providing filters? Is 16th Street Community Clinic providing filters? Who's providing filters to the public so that the public can get down to that zero that the CDC, EPA, and even your website recommends in our water?
Well, as I mentioned, I believe the health department is supplying filters in certain instances.
Not to everybody.
Not to everybody, no. In certain instances. It's the high-risk population. Yeah.
So we should be really promoting filters instead of telling people to flush. I mean, flushing is not a bad thing. When flushing is needed, I understand that it's needed. Flushing, it has to be done when there's water mains replaced and other things are going on in the system. Flushing is needed, but to say that you flush your water and after you flush everything is fine, it's not totally accurate.
Well, I don't know. Reduce risk.
Reduce risk, right. But we want to get to prevent the risk.
Well, there's
two
as we discussed earlier, that's going to be incredibly challenging.
Well, if you have filters, it can get there, right?
Well, potentially. I mean, you can get to non-detect. I don't know if you're getting to zero. I mean, non-detect is less than 1 part per billion. I don't know that we're at zero.
Non-detect is better than 1 part per billion, I would say.
Well, we just don't know because we can't detect below 1 part per billion. So, I mean, and you know this as well, when all the lead service lines are replaced in the system, the utility will still be adding orthophosphate to the water because of the potential for lead release from internal plumbing due to the solder or the fixtures having lead content in them, or the possibility that there's been lead release from the lead piping that is collected inside the internal plumbing. So this is a continuing situation after the lead service lines are replaced. Yes?
So also like to your point with flushing, because the reason why it's unreliable and is also in part because there have been mixed results with flushing. So it doesn't always reduce. Sometimes, in some cases, studies have shown that it actually increases the levels of lead in water. So it is a very unreliable thing. Another thing with flushing, you flush like in the morning, and then after like 15 minutes, the lead's back in, and if the process isn't repeated, then the lead is back in the water, and people, if they're only doing it in the morning, then they're still drinking lead in water.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that our experience, and quite honestly, we're continuing to collect data based on the testing we do pre and post lead service line replacement, has that been, and understand that in our city, residential homes with lead service lines are typically on the older, narrower roads with buildings built close to the property line. So we know the length of a service line, and we know approximately how much water is in that service line. So how much water, how long it takes to flush that water completely out of the service line. I think some of the surveys you're referencing, there were varying levels or lengths of the service lines, and certainly the longer the service line, the more time you need to allow the water to flush to clear the pipe. But our results have been that flushing for 3 minutes has, in almost all instances, returned a no detect level, and when there is a detect level, it is very low. And I want to say 2 offhand is the average now. We have hundreds of data points, not thousands of data points, and we will continue to collect. But that's a similar experience to what other municipalities have reported to us as well. So is flushing going to get to zero? Unlikely. But if you flush, you reduce the risk. And this is about lead safe, lead aware, reducing risk, and that's why I referenced that we need to be very cognizant of soil, paint, dust. Brian, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one clarifying comment. So, Mr. Miranda, you noted that lead levels are 12 or 13 parts per billion. That's not accurate.
No, it was an example.
Right.
I didn't say that is what it is.
Okay.
I said.
You said you want to get them down from 12 to 13,
Wherever
down to
they
2
are,
or 3
wherever
or 4.
they are.
Right. Well, so the lead levels in most properties are at 2 or 3 or 4 parts per billion. The only times we find levels that are significantly higher than that is when we test the water at properties that are vacant or that have been unoccupied for an extended period of time. And the reason for that is because it takes time for lead to accumulate in lead pipes, okay? The oxidization process that releases lead, it doesn't happen within 15 minutes, like you suggested. It takes days and weeks to...
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
I'm not.
The experts in the country will contradict you in a heartbeat.
Who is he?
And who is this guy? This guy is, and who is he? He's intimidated one of our members, and he tried to bust up one of our press conferences. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? I want to know what this guy is.
Brian is our marketing and communications.
Oh, that's a city employee.
After asking questions.
Yes, all right.
Okay, so I want to mention, before we go any further, that Tyler Weber from the Health Department is here. I'm a little out of my depth answering some of these health-related questions. So if we need Tyler's assistance with any health department-related questions, he can step in. Yes?
I just like to put a video from my observation.
I'm sorry, can we focus on the questions?
You came in our face and you disrespect with us.
Okay.
And I tell him, he's your employee, tell him to sit down.
Right now, this is not the time or the place for none of that.
Okay, you tell him that.
This is,
You got no
I don't got nothing to do with any of
Okay,
that.
tell him
Nothing to
tell
do
him
with
to
what
stay
y'all
over there.
got going on, what's going on here and there. My only concern is my babies, my community.
That's what our concern is too.
Exactly,
So
but
why is he
all the
doing our
extra
face?
stuff ain't gonna make you get no better though. Is it gonna make you better? Let's keep it a buck.
Tell
It's
him
not,
to stay
I'm
over
gonna
there.
say the same thing I'm saying. I'm
No,
saying
he
to
came up to us.
everybody in the room. This don't never make a situation better. Like seriously.
He sure isn't.
He wouldn't, you ain't either.
Well, he came
At this
he came
point.
to his face. He threatened him. He just threatened him right here.
No.
He went right to his
I
face
can definitely
threatening him.
discuss that later. Let's keep this PG right now. Let's talk about the babies. Because I wanted to have something to say about some clarification on a couple of things where I feel. My feelings. Because I have kids that's affected by it. And it's near and dear to my heart more than anything.
We all have kids. I have
Exactly,
kids too.
we all
I have
do.
kids.
So we
and
know
my
how
kids
it
were
is.
affected by this water.
Exactly.
And I'm also a victim
And I'm
of
just as
water
angry as
poisoning from Camp
anybody
Lateral.
else.
So I know a little bit about water,
Exactly.
okay? So we all are victims, all right?
And I understand
so
that.
don't preach to me about victimization.
I'm not preaching to anybody.
Okay?
We all adults.
No, that
We are
clown,
all
he
adults.
triggered me. He triggered me. That clown over there triggered me.
Come on.
I gotta leave. I gotta leave because we're not gonna. I gotta go. Bobby, let me know.
My
Sorry about that,
apologies,
everybody. I
everyone
apologize.
that is here. My apologies. Let's keep it calm. We can never get nowhere like that. We gotta keep it, listen to the side that is bringing it to the table. Listen to the side of the people that want to be heard. We want to be heard, but we can't get heard if we all in disagreement. We can't get through.
I think you want to be listened to and not heard.
Thank you.
And I feel
Thank
like
you.
y'all are being heard and not listened
Thank
to.
you. And I feel the same way. I don't work for this company. I'm an advocate. I don't work for nobody. I'm just here to talk about my babies and how I feel that our babies. I've been coaching basketball 25 years, and a lot of my players are affected by lead poisoning. But this right here ain't gonna be it. But at the end of the day, y'all, I just want to speak upon coal. We are, thank you. We are providing education. We are also putting it into our budget where we're able to help a lot of the families get filtration systems in their house. I just wanted to say that. I know I gotta, listen to what's going on at the table, but I'm at the table. And I wanna be able to be at the table and take everything everybody say in this room to that table. I don't care who's sitting at that table. It ain't no issues of whose money bigger or whose money is lower for me. We are all in this, whether your income is high or low, because all of our babies are being affected by this. Go ahead, young man.
Thank you. I agree. We in the community need accurate information. And so if the office is giving information that's being disputed, they need to come forward and give their sources. The gentleman who left, he gave the sources. He showed what he knew. The office needs to back it up.
And I definitely agree with that. I feel the same exact way you feel. You have sources. Let's get the sources together excuse me, Brian, give me 1 second. When we are getting our facts straight, we have to make sure that we represent it correctly. And I definitely understand what you're saying. My apologies on my behalf. I can't say it for anyone else but myself. And I want to be able to say that Cole is here to advocate for our community. Thank you.
Can I just clarify? I feel like having, 1 second. I feel like having a press conference or having this type of engagement and not coming with your facts already ready is disrespectful to anybody who decides to show up. So if people are in the audience and emotions are high, but they are still citing their sources and they are asking things and they're being told that's proprietary information, health department, yada, yada, this, that, and third. Yes, and two things can be true. Okay, this is what I can't tell you, this is what I can tell you. This is the main problem. So I've been sitting here for like, I don't know, 10 minutes. I wasn't here from the beginning. But in the time that I've been here, the issue is, while this is getting fixed, where are the filters? Y'all aren't potty filters? Okay, cool. Who do we talk to from your department about providing filters? Because clearly you can't give that answer. But you can give the answer to who you need to speak to. So then they can bring their questions directly to them. Yes, Mark, and you can also tell me that. Who should they be speaking to about getting those filters? Because why this is getting figured out, yes, it's about the babies, but guess what? I'm 32, which means I was also a baby. That's there's my house right there, dark purple. So that means it's asthma, it's all this other stuff that comes from here. Like him, I was in the Marine Corps, so the Camp Lejeune stuff, all of it, right? Yeah. Everybody in this room was affected by it. It's not just about the babies, it is about the babies who already had it happen. So where are the filtration systems? If that isn't on the table, if that's not something to talk about, if it is a cost issue, okay, who do we talk about? Who do we talk to about maybe that a cost issue that is at the front? Because this is going to take a while. It's been taking a while. Filtration systems is something that can be figured out rather quickly.
One of the main things, and it's not to really talk about my story, but it is a factor in here. When I first started doing asthma, I started out asthma in the community because of the asthma attack my kids was having. I did on a volunteer basis. And I started noticing a lot of this lead poisoning going around to the different kids or whatever, what was going on in our neighborhood. So that's how I ended up getting involved with that. And I started bringing it to the table, like, where's the money at that we can get these filtration systems? I'm not saying that I do it for the adults, but one thing I can say is I try to do it for any household that the kid frequents. If the kid is over there, I don't care if it's kids that live there permanently or not. If it's a household that the kids, maybe the babysitter, the daycare, the aunt, the uncle, the grandfather, or whoever, I try to provide some type of filtration to them as well. One thing about Cole is we are stepping up in that department. To get the filter pictures out to the community, that's what we're doing now. But Cole only just opened up recently in March. So it's gonna take me time per se, but I am making that effort.
But I'm not, and I get that and I respect that, but like, I'm talking to you, not like them.
Yeah,
like that's directly who my question is to, just so there's clarity. I appreciate what you know from the community because it's advocacy groups like you that help protect the community when other corporations and things fail.
Yeah.
Right now, y'all are failing. The community is telling you that y'all are failing. And so what they're telling you is how not to fail. And so if the filtration systems is what they need and that's not on the docket, and they're telling you that, then that should then be the first thing. Because this is, how long have y'all known about this? and this is still getting taken care of, and it's gonna take a while. That's what I'm asking. Who do we talk to about that? Who is the person who needs to have pressure applied for emails written, letters written, this and the third? What type? Who is that? Who makes that decision?
I would say that you're not gonna like this answer. I'm gonna tell you that right off the bat. We are the public water utility, so we are responsible for the public water system that we own and maintain within the right of way. We are regulated by the Public Service Commission. There are certain expenses we as a public water utility cannot incur, and paying for private plumbing work or filters for property owners is one of those things. We are I know you're not happy about this either, we are in full compliance with the lead and copper rule. We compliance sample every 3rd year. So in answer to your question, it would be a city policy. I'm struggling to say who to reach out to talk about this.
So here, I'll make it like a little easier, all right? So there are guidelines from who tells you when you can use what part of the budget you can use, right? They say, okay, this falls within your scope, this does not. You can't do this. Who tells you that you can't do that?
The Public Service Commission.
Okay, so the Public Service Commission is who all these people should be talking directly to, because they're in control of what your budget can and cannot do.
Well, they don't control our budget. They are our regulators. So they're the state regulator. The budget is controlled by the city. The regulator controls our budget. And as I said, we are part of the city, certainly, but we are the public water utility responsible for the public facilities in the right of way. Our jurisdiction stops at the property line. And this service line replacement program, which is why the private side of the service is being split between the city cost, not utility cost, city cost, and the property owner cost.
So then do you, by any chance, know who that is?
Well,
because
if someone
the reason why I'm asking that, right? Because y'all don't like receiving people clear. Like,
well,
there's a lot of, I'm just saying, you don't like receiving it clear, right? Well, it's happening, there's the back and forth. I'm not talking about whether you're here or not, it's the engagement that's happening. It's not desirable by any parts. So, that being said, you don't like it because you don't feel like it should be directed toward you. Feel you. Who then should it be directed toward?
Well, if you're asking whether the City of Milwaukee should provide filters to all public residents, whose decision that is?
Yes.
It's a city decision based on, the health department would weigh in with their advisory on that. Based on the fact that we are in compliance with lead and copper rules, I'm not sure where the health department would come into that, but then it would be a city budget question, and I don't know which department. Well, Brian's not. No.
Well, he's about to step forward. That's how
he's not going to step forward because I'll watch this on my own. Mm-hmm. It would be a health department city policy to provide water filters, but I'm sorry.
Would it be an issue? He just asked about the filters. Would it be an issue that the Milwaukee Common Council needs to address in order to designate funds for it, or designate a department that has to deal with the filters to provide to the public? Because I know the departments, everybody do their own thing, but they needed upper authority for funding and decision making. So my question is the Milwaukee Common Council, is it an issue for the Milwaukee Common Council to bring it up in one of their committees to designate funding, and who will be in charge in providing those filters to the community?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question. As I said, the Water Works recommends filtration for high-risk population, children under the age of 6. Do you have you don't have a question? Okay, I had one question. Let me finish up with that. Go there and then go there. The Water Works does recommend filtration devices for the high-risk populations. For the non-high-risk populations, I think that's a more difficult conversation related to filtration devices.
Yes, so based on the information that I've been able to figure out or collect is
this is a project that's going to target specific areas or neighborhoods that are in need. And one thing that you mentioned that came out really clear or very strong is that 50% would be a high number or to just get people to respond. In these neighborhoods, and maybe not just in these neighborhoods, the problem is people are caught up. They're caught up with life, work, children, responsibilities, debts, everything. So, in a simplified sort of way, that part of communication, if the discussion, the initial discussion would be, how can we communicate clearly as simply that you have the whole community understand, oh, it's as simple as this. This is what they're going to do. Let's do our part. Let's respond. Let's set this up. Because even in this meeting gathering, this is confusing. So taking it straight from that, just for that part, I'd like to contribute that, just simplifying it for clear communication so that the people that are trying to be addressed can actually respond because it's clear and it's simple, rather than because they're caught up in life.
Okay. Point taken. I mean, we tried to do that with point. I mean, certainly we can get
It's not a
better.
complaint, it's a suggestion, and it's speaking to the heart where the area where I live.
Yes, we can certainly do better in that regard. Yes.
I guess my only question is, I know this isn't an issue that we focus on, and needs money, we need proposals. It's a lot of things that go into it. My question is, are there grants? Because obviously these are impoverished communities who can't just, some people can't just pay for it, you know what I mean? And they're probably below the poverty line, you know what I mean? Right at the poverty line, are there grants? Is it free funding? Is there a place people can get water bottles? You know, things for right now instead of 20 years from now.
Well, so you're not referring to grants to assist with the service line replacement. You're
grants to provide that, maybe, you know, water bottles, things that maybe don't cost as much, but, you know, they probably still can't afford everything because all the high-risk areas are impoverished communities. So are there any resources that you know? So I know someone mentioned filters. You said you guys, you know, you recommend that. What about people that can't afford those?
Yes, and that is, it's a challenging conversation that we've been having here. The grants that we're focused on right now are the ones that are coming from the EPA and the DNR. If for some reason that funding falls short, we will explore the possibility of potentially other grant sources. There aren't a lot of grant, sources available. There's the Community Development Block Grant Program, but that funding is a Community Development Block Grant Program, but that funding is typically spoken for other needs as well. So it's something we've had some general conversation, but have been focused on the funding from the EPA and the DNR at this point.
So it's not really a lot of places, resources for this.
There are not. Yes, Alderman Perez.
Do you have a number of how many of these properties that are in the priority area are actually owner occupied?
We do not. I would speculate that 50%, but that would be just based on our previous small sample size experience. But that question has been asked a number of times, and we've not. I don't know that we know where the most reliable store of information is to determine owner occupancy at this point. But that is one of the challenges.
Well, my suggestion would be as you're finalizing this plan, maybe the cost to absentee landlords is a part of doing business, and I'm assuming you have to do it appropriately, but I would think some of the grants would be offered to the indigent owner occupants and landlords that should get also doing business for them.
And that has been part of our conversation. If the Safe Drinking Water Loan, the DNR funding doesn't cover, the grants don't cover the private side cost. Is there a way to offer a program to allow owner-occupied to obtain a credit of some sort? And that's another conversation. There have been so many conversations about the aspects of this program. Yes, I saw you first.
You've laid out, how you kind of arrived at what areas would be targeted next. You're gonna think about long term. Without looking at that calculation, is there a way to crank up youth, like children under 5, and prioritize that more? Is that target demographic? It might change the boundaries somewhere, but it seems like, I don't know if you can have that data, and it changes all the time, right? But targeting households with children under 5 seems to be so incredibly critical. Is there a way to prioritize that? And I don't, maybe you already have. Is there a way to do more?
We have not. We have not looked for that data. I mean, we can certainly ask questions and find out if that data would be available. But as you said, that changes so frequently.
But
that
you
we
could get a close to ballpark.
Yeah, the EBL. Thank you. The EBLL data is specifically related. It's a smaller population, but it is specifically related to children.
What is that?
The elevated blood level data that we acquired from the health
But that's
department.
only kids with tested, right?
Yes,
You look at
that's
school
only
records or birth records or
right.
I don't know what data points are out there, but
Yeah, it's a much smaller
prioritizing-
population, right?
I don't know if that's, you listed like 13 data points, but could that be weighted more heavily in that calculation?
Okay, we can certainly look into that. There was a question back here, then I'm coming up to you.
What about the state? Has the state offered any help with that problem?
Well, the Wisconsin DNR is the state of Wisconsin.
Is there any other department?
No, all of
We
our.
have a surplus in the budget.
Yes, and I believe Governor Evers had initially put some funding into the state budget for lead service line replacement. My belief is that was removed during the budget process. So as of right now, I'm not aware. May have been kept for lead service? Okay, so I'm hearing that maybe a small amount was kept into the state budget. We haven't heard that officially. Yeah.
City's legislative.
40% officials, around 40 million.
40 to 60 million may remain.
Remaining out of the 200.
Okay, so I haven't heard that officially, but that was possible.
She has a question. She wants to know if she looks like in the pink zone. How long is it going to take for her to get the replacement done?
Well, so that is a really good question, and the answer is we don't know right now. We have ranked the top 6 on the north side and the top 4 on the south side, and those were intended to be the first to prioritize locations, and then we may need to update the data, and then I think as part of the overall plan, we would provide a list of the locations from beginning to end at some point, but I don't know how long it will take to get to that.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, just a quick point. I think the Department of Neighborhood Services maintains a non-owner occupied data set, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So that might be something to look into in terms of determining which are owner-occupied homes that might want to be prioritized for not having to pay the private side portion, which ones are priority.
We can certainly look into that. We've had a number of conversations with DNS throughout this process.
So just for a point of clarification, no filtration systems are coming via you guys.
Did the water works? No.
Okay.
When we replace that service lines, yes, we give it replaced.
Yeah, when they get replaced, but as just stated, there's no timeline on that. So for the time being, before that happens, there's no filtration systems coming.
From the water works.
From the water works, right. And you don't know who is responsible for allocating money towards that.
Well, so I don't want to.
The reason why that's a point for me is that not just Milwaukee, but literally 58% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck of this entire country, 58%. And we're talking about Milwaukee, which is pretty high up on the impoverished level, right? When we look at what's the chart for this entire country, we're asking these people to go and purchase something when everybody is already hanging on by a thread. That's a small purchase. I get that, but that small purchase is not actually a small purchase to someone living in those conditions. So, just I understand that that is not on y'all's scope right now. Who would allow for that? That is what I'm asking. Very clearly. If you don't know, you say, I don't know. But like, if there's a commission or something that advises you guys on what you can and can't do, or who would be that, because you're in that realm day to day, who is that?
Well, so it could be, if you're asking about our regulator, Public Service Commission, that would be a conversation with the Public Service Commission. And certainly I have to reach out to the Public Service Commission about a couple of other issues right now. This conversation can be held with them. That has been something that was discussed previous to my being in this position, and my understanding is we were told that that's not a acceptable cost for the public water utility, because it's, and out of my realm, more of a health related service. So if the conversation is not with Water Works related, then it's city leaders related, health department related, and I'm struggling because I don't want to. Tyler, do you want to chime in?
I mean, like, it's okay if you like. I mean, like, the thing is, like, I get why you're struggling a little bit, just because you don't want to put anybody in a hot seat or you don't even know the name. But the thing is, so hot seat is warranted.
It's just not one person, I guess.
I get it. Like,
yeah.
But there is a committee. So do we know that committee? I'm not saying, like, when I say who is it, it's not just this one individual show up at this person's house. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying whom is responsible, what body is responsible for making this decision? What body is in the way or currently has the decision power to decide whether or not the public gets these filtration systems, which they clearly need?
So why don't we start with Tyler will explain exactly when the health department currently offers filters, because I think there was some confusion about even that aspect of.
Yeah. Hi everybody, time.However, Deputy Commissioner of Environmental Health. We work with primarily employees and children, so we do give water filters. We give lead or healthy home kits that includes Swiffers for dust wipes, replacement filters, etc. We also distribute water filters to partners, birthing centers, hospital centers, nonprofit agencies to get it to the clients they work with, because we can't touch everyone in the city. We don't have that opportunity. Unless we get significant injection of funds to staff up and really build the infrastructure to get $6 million a year worth of filters out there. And so there's the challenge with a large city is there's multiple layers of departments to work through. There's a public safety and health committee. There's the health department, there's Water Works, there's also the budget office and how they prioritize, and so there's a few places to start to also raise your voice beyond this, beyond Patrick and myself. But yeah, we have to do more to get more services, more water filters, more kits out there to help these families in most need, pregnant women, etc.
So it seems like you guys are trying to do that. Who's in your way?
The number of people that need it.
No, I mean, like, not the number of people needed. Like you said, if you had to budget to staff up that this could be done, who's preventing that? Like, not, let me put my words so you don't get in trouble. What is the challenge point for you guys receiving that funding in order to staff up to be able to meet the needs of these people that need the filtration systems? Who is the deciding factor?
City funding, so I'll say Common Council, and then the city government side, mayor's office that trickles on down.
Okay.
There's often a debate of how budget dollars are spent, and so there's multiple meetings on that, multiple budgets, etc.
Common Council, mayor office.
And then they have multiple departments.
Yeah,
Public
yeah.
safety and health is another one. There's a budget committee, finance and personnel committee, et cetera.
And all those are found online. Who's a part of those?
Yes. In the back.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, so all those kids that you give to these partners, is there like a targeted list or a coordinated list? So the people that you know have the issue, so they're getting the kits, they're getting the filters, do these impoverished areas?
Yeah, some organizations
Is
work
there a
with.
list, and do you have like an audit, or make sure that they're getting it, so you cross them off the list, so you can move, so get more funding to move to get everybody covered? Because I remember in the beginning, when this first became a public issue, you guys were giving out hundreds of these water filters to people that came in with certain zip codes. So like, have you went off of that list, and has been coordinated to like cover the areas?
Yeah, there's some trust. The agencies have better relationships with their clients than we do, like 16th Street Community Health Center on the south side. Or,
So do they still currently give those kits out?
yes. We stock them with kits.
How many kits do they get?
As requested, a few hundred to a few thousand a year, depending on the work that they're doing, the outreach they're doing in that time. Organizations like Cole as well has gotten kits. Some churches, it depends. But our priority is children under the age of 6. As pregnant women, we do not have enough kits to provide it for everyone in the city.
But then there's a list that you're working on to try and get that down? Or?
Yeah, and yes and no. Our organizations, our partners have the kits. We're not door knocking. We're not knocking in every door. People move. We have transient city. People come and go. New kids are born. So I think we have to have a cross-sector approach where it's not just government. Obviously, we have a lot of accountability, but I wish we could say we had a single list, but we necessarily don't. We have a list of the children that are lead poisoned. So how lead poisoning works is you have to get generally tested through a primary care provider or sometimes a WIC office. Every blood lead test in the state, whether it's in Milwaukee or in Madison or northern Wisconsin, goes to the state, called a HELPS database. It's created by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And then each local health department has its right to see the lead levels in that jurisdiction. So whether it's a blood lead level of 0.5 micrograms per deciliter or 20 micrograms per deciliter, we can see that. So we do have a list like that to call on and work from. And either ourselves or a partner that we have an agreement with at a minimum makes a phone call to every child that tested 3.5 micrograms per deciliter and above to provide education. Are there resources or referrals to make? And the higher the lead level, the more intervention is. So we have that list to work from.
And you gotta check this, making sure it's happening, because wasn't that an issue in the beginning that wasn't happening?
The health department's had major issues
People
as late
weren't
as
connected,
2018.
the kids that had lead, there was no follow-up and stuff? So
Yeah,
that's happening?
2018, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, and so I've been here 2 years. We've done a lot of hiring. We've worked with Alderman Perez, who's been on us very hard to continue to ramp up the program and have more accountability, from enforcement to getting the work done on abatement of properties, to our nurse teams, to working with Children's Hospital better. There's significant work, and there's a lot we're doing because Milwaukee's behind. Other cities are ahead of us. You see these maps. Lead poisoning is devastating for this city, and there's too many kids for far too long, and we're trying to make up ground.
So they're raising everything. They're raising the rental property taxes, the road tax, and everything. I don't see how no money is coming back to Milwaukee. I feel like Milwaukee's paying for the entire state of Wisconsin. And we're getting chewed out of everything.
That's the governor's fault.
The road, tire tax, come on, man. And all this other stuff. We're paying for the whole freaking city of Wisconsin, or the state of Wisconsin. And it's, I feel like it's taking out on Milwaukee. I've been born and raised my whole life here. And this is just got outrageous, and I don't mean my anger towards you or anybody in this room, I'm just angry. I'm just not gonna move.
That's the government. 100%.
Ridiculous.
What's the possibility of getting a tax, what do you call it? Not a tax refund, but a tax allowance on our property tax? You get done for the property owner? Has anybody looked into that?
Tax allowance to.
No, it's like, you know, it's like you get property tax relief, right? If you kick in and do this, like you said, 1,000 to 2,000 or something to get it done, get the lead pipes out of.
You're talking about if you as a property owner asked to.
Right. And then, so they say, okay, we did that, we get the receipt from the city, we had it done. Get like a tax credit, like, you know, okay, I'll take it off our income tax, you know, for the state.
I don't know what the mechanism that could be used to create that, quite honestly.
I mean,
especially this.
has everybody even asked, say, look, if people get this done, we have a problem there, can we give them some kind of relief? Maybe 50% off or something?
Well, that's the
That's what
current.
I'm saying, has anybody raised it to the state?
We have conversations with the state DNR. I don't know that anyone's raised it to the state budget committee. No, I do not know that. I don't know where that conversation would start, quite honestly.
I think he's asking. I think he's asking for y'all to ask that.
Well, and I'll have to inquire as to where to ask. I mean, it'll start with the legislative reference, you know, for the intergovernmental department, I think, would have to be asked that question. I think the chances
I think
be
you go
likely
through the
to
regulation, the people that regulate you, say, hey, look, if people get this done, it's gonna put, you know, we can get it done faster, and they get a credit on the taxes. You know, they're helping us getting our problem done. Can we help them?
Well, it's not a PSC question, it's a Department of Revenue question.
But that's
for
where
the
your
state.
budget comes from.
No, our budget comes from the city.
It's a state issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's a state Department of
Yeah, they do
Revenue.
uniform taxes, so they gotta do the same thing for everyone.
Right.
This may be a slight aside, but I did purchase a foreclosed property from the city earlier this year, and we've been renovating the entire thing. And just recently, I'm trying to jump through all the hoops to be able to qualify for the, I don't know what program, but faulty pipes. And I've kind of just been, not really given the runaround, but it's kind of just been a little bit more difficult of a process to actually get inspectors, what kind of inspector. I was originally sent from that program to billing, then to like meter inspection. I didn't have a meter, so kind of, I just think for properties that have been foreclosed, sold by the city, that have maybe sat vacant for a few years, like you said, should, without having to apply, already qualify, probably, especially for, you know, purchasing from the city directly, especially if they know it's going to be to happen.
We typically expect those, and if the certain pipeline is severed in any way, disturbed or cut prior to the meter, then we do include them in the program. But as of right now, we're operating under the ordinance that was put into place and the rules of that ordinance. So that is a challenge, though. And are you working through DCD, or you're not part of MKB Homes?
I purchased a house upon reference of like a neighbor within 500 feet under that program, and I signed for to like buy to live. So I'm kind of like on a 3-year. I don't know the rule behind that, but I just think circumstantially, just into the future, I feel like it should be something where they're just automatically kind of entered into that process, just because I'm, you know, trying to like kind of jump through all the who do I call, where do I go, and then I got referred away from them because I didn't have an account because it was foreclosed. So
did you ultimately get an inspection?
I met with the meter inspector today. He told me to recall my plumbing rough inspector, who originally suggested that I should call to get the program because he figured my pipes were leaking. It's just confusing. So I think it should just be like already, because it's a foreclosed property that's now being remodeled. The city knows.
Right. Well, and I mean, we have a lot of foreclosed properties that don't get remodeled and get demoed, and so we're certainly not going to replace. We don't want to replace the service. Yeah, I mean that's why there's some properties they go through a long process to get the foreclosure. They've been vacant for, as you described, a long time. It's difficult to monitor those things, but we do try to get out there and inspect them, and if they all qualify, get them into the program. Yes.
In our neighborhood on Mitchell, our water lines are shared. They were built in the 1800s. So my water line is shared with the front house, and it's vacant. It's been vacant for about 4 or 5 years. And it's not only my water line, it's also my neighbor's water line. So in the winter, we get frozen pipes, we have to pay for plumbers to come fix our pipes. I've been trying to get my own water line, and again, I get runarounds as well. You know, they say, oh, we can't do nothing because you don't own the property. But my water is being affected, and they even said that it's got lead in it. There's nothing that I can do because I don't own that property, but I do own my property. Is there a program for us?
There is not. This is a very, and you're not alone in the situation. There are hundreds of locations where our rear building was built behind the front building. The front building paid to have the plumbing just extended to the rear building, and so the rear building is completely dependent on, unfortunately a property owner relationship concern, and your solution, as you've identified, is to install a new service back to your building, but you have to have permission from the front property owner to install that service under their property. Yes, those are very challenging conversations that we had, and they certainly nothing like that is currently allowed, but it is a legacy of things that were allowed in the past. And to have 3 is uncommon, but you're not the only one where a third building.
And my house is in the back, so they quoted me about $50,000.
Right, to drill that service line all the way back there. Okay, if there are no more, thank you all.
Thank you.